What's up, Marcus?
Hey Rich, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Good. Ready to go into 2021. Look.
Yeah, I am as well. It's going to be much better. Can only get better.
I don't think it can get worse, hopefully.
I'm trying to shut up Marvin's dog. She left me to dog sit, so hopefully I'll be okay. He's like crying and bitching because Marva left. So
Oh, I put mine away.
yeah.
He's a little needy. So I did see where you had posted something about you wanted to start doing animals in your Airbnb. How's that going?
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of people that travel with pets don't have that many options. Most Airbnb people don't allow pets, and so it's like a potential revenue stream that you can charge more. And so I'm just trying to see the best way to protect it for insurance and liability and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people travel with pets nowadays. I mean, honestly, when I go out of town, unless it's just like an extended long trip, like a week or longer, I travel with my pet. So
Right.
I think it kind of makes sense, So especially if it's like a small one, like a small dog or cat or something, I don't think it's
Yeah.
I don't think it's too much of a hassle. And as long as it doesn't shed, oh yeah, that might be.
Yeah, the dog hair, allergies, and all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah, that would be the only downside to it.
Yeah.
So once everybody, all the panelists log on, I'm gonna link us live to Facebook, and then we'll be able to get started. I'll make sure I tag everybody so it'll show up on their pages as well. Okay.
Well, what's up, Keto?
Hey, how y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Keto just moved.
I have zero furniture, so I'm standing. I'm standing at the bar.
Where did you move to?
Downtown to Atlantic Station.
Nice. How do you like it so far?
Well, I've only been here 30 minutes, but I love it. I wanted to come. I mean, we wanted to be down here for a while, and thankful to COVID, my daughter's online school. That was the only reason we were still in the suburbs.
Oh, okay. So she's graduated now.
No, she's doing high school online.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she'll be virtual still for the rest of the year.
Yeah, she's gonna stay virtual, and we put our house in Roswell on Airbnb.
Oh, nice.
So,
Go figure.
yeah, so I've been homeless for the last 7 days because the guests checked in last Sunday and we didn't get our keys to this place till today. So.
Oh.
Yeah.
Hey, Janine.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. I didn't want to interrupt you guys. How's everybody?
Good. How have you been?
I'm good. Trying to get it all done before this Friday.
Right. That's what we said. I was like, oh, I'm just ready. I'm ready to go into the new year now.
Yes, for sure.
It's 2020 has been an interesting one.
Definitely.
I don't know that I'd use the word interesting, but
I feel like it's been interesting because it's had its like peaks and valleys, for me at least, so,
Same.
And you always start the new year off so optimistic, and my birthday's in January, so I'm always the most optimistic. I'm like, yes, this is my year, so I feel like it just started out this plateau and then kind of and then now it's kind of going back up some, so
Good.
So Janine, I was just telling them once the other panelists log on here in just a minute, we're gonna link in live, so we'll be streaming it on Facebook as well. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll make sure I tag everybody, so it should be able to show up on your social media page. Okay.
Sounds good.
And then as well, too, guys, when you guys are speaking, what I'll try to do is I can drop it in the chats or the comments, like your handles on IG and Facebook. I'll make sure I do that. That way, if people want to try to connect with y'all afterwards, it's a lot easier for them to find you that way. So
Cool.
for those of us who are active, I feel like Rich, I tagged you in something the other day, and then I saw like the last time you posted was like February 2020. I was like,
Yeah, so that was right around when I took that marketing class from you to learn how to use Instagram.
yeah,
Honestly,
exactly.
I don't get it. I don't get Instagram. I can do Facebook. That's about it.
Yeah.
You know, Twitter, Instagram, all that other stuff. It's gonna take. I'm not gonna mess with it.
We're too old, Rich. We're too old. We don't get it.
Or y'all,
Exactly.
Clubhouse yet? That's the new thing.
What's
And
it called?
Now you got all this other stuff. You got TikTok, you got Clubhouse. I mean, you gotta stay with it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll
that's
leave
too
that for my
much.
grandkids.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's already
I'll leave that for the
bad.
grandkids. I can't fool them.
Yeah.
What's
up,
going on,
Nicole?
Oh, hey, what's going on?
How you doing?
Good.
You
How are
look
you?
comfy. Oh,
Mhm.
and you got you a glass of wine. I should have known, right? Look.
Yeah, for sure.
See, that's the beauty about these meetings. The good thing about 2020, you have Zoom meetings where you can have a glass of wine, right? Don't have to worry about driving home.
We need to
Oh.
continue this. We need to continue that. Because they was trying to get us to come to Roswell last week, and I was like, yeah, I'm not going in all that traffic. No, I'm
Right.
good.
Oh yeah. Did y'all end up? Did you go to that, Janine or Rich or Tito, to the who was it? The Powerhouse Real Estate Christmas thing?
No.
No. Okay.
I saw it posted. I wasn't invited, so I'm not special enough.
Yeah.
They had reached out, but it was literally when I googled the traffic from Decatur to Roswell, it was like an hour and 20 minutes. I was like, yeah.
So traffic's back. Well, that's a good thing.
Exactly. Yeah, traffic is definitely back, and it was raining that day, so it was just holiday traffic. You know, it's people last minute Christmas shopping. It just wasn't a good idea.
Stop it. I'm gonna need to get this dog situated.
Oh, he's barking at you.
I don't hear no dog.
Yeah, he's huffing and puffing. Marva left and he's freaking out. So we've been down in Ponce City Market. We're kind of upgrading. We're getting rid of our old units and adding new ones. So we've been down here the last couple of days.
Oh, okay. Must be nice. Must be nice.
We went on the Beltline this morning, had lunch at this place that's got like falafel and hummus and
Oh, yum.
kebabs. So
Hey, what place is that, Rich?
it's called Ring.
Ring?
It's right on the Beltline across from Ponce City Market.
Okay. It's near the Home Depot?
Yeah, right. But it's right on the Beltline. Like the only way to get to it is on the Beltline.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was pretty good.
All right, guys. I'm gonna give our other speaker like a couple minutes, but if not, they can always still just log in, and then I'll just go ahead and link us in and get us started. Okay.
Okay. I need a chair. We should have brought
Hey, do any of you guys have a good rental property available under 250? I've got a client that's doing a 1031, so we're in a time crunch.
What area are they looking in?
Anything under 250.
Oh, okay.
250,000, huh?
And they're looking for and everything, as you guys know, everything on market right now, it's under that price point. It's 20 offers minimum on day one. So we're trying to get something off market, something rent ready or very minimal paint carpet. So if you guys know of anything, let me know.
Okay.
It would be a conventional loan, so 30-day close, since she's doing a 1031.
I'll keep that in mind. I might have something Are they open with Stone Mountain?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are they okay with a rehab, or did you say like not that much work?
Right. So minimal rehab. So just paint
Okay.
carpets really all they want to do. They don't want to do a big extensive rehab. So they want to be able to get renters in there pretty quick.
Okay.
Are they open to the hood?
To where? Did you say the hood?
He said the hood.
I might have something that's already occupied with an Atlanta Housing Authority tenant.
How much are they contributing?
The tenant pays $46.
Oh, that's it. Okay. Okay. So Atlanta, and they're
The total rent's $1,550. But here's the thing: the rent was $1,800. It's a 5-bedroom. The rent was $1,800, and
wow.
her older son moved out, so they dropped her voucher size.
Ah,
When they dropped her size from a 5 to a 4, they reduced the rent from $1,800 to $1,550.
ah.
So it's been
What's the zip code?
30314.
14. Okay. That's not the ghetto.
It was about 5 years ago now. So people like Keto started going over there, but it was rough for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and link us in. I know we have a few people that are already on the webinar right now. And then as well, I'm gonna go ahead and link us to Facebook so we can stream live, okay?
Yeah, I hear your dog. I had a dog and I got rid of my new dog. I only had him 2 weeks. And I said, I can't do no more piss and shit cleanup and no more. He was a baby too. He was only 8 months. He wanted to play all the time. And I'd be tired. I was like, I can't do this. I got to give him back. I already got one. All he see me when I come in, he go sit down. This one, he will be all over you, on top of you, around you, underneath you, across from you. I mean, if I lay on the couch and fall asleep, he come and wake me up. He come put his hands on my face, telling me to get up. I said, oh, hell to the no.
That's funny.
Yes, I gave him back, and it was a schnauzer too. It was a miniature schnauzer.
Oh, they're cute.
And he cried like that, like Rich's dog, cried all the time.
I think that's my dog in here crying because my kids just left her. So she's gonna cry until they come back.
See, I ain't got time for that no more. I'm too old now. I mean, Ty is 7 years old now. I can't do that. I can't go back to the baby stuff.
They're just needy.
Yeah, they too needy. They want to eat right now, not tomorrow. They want to eat right now, and as soon as you wake up, they going straight to the bowl. I'm like, dude, can I get some coffee? Can I at least make me some breakfast first?
It's all about them. That's for sure.
Yeah. For sure. Going live yet?
Yep, we're almost all set up.
I feel like I need to put some lipstick on. Let me go put some lipstick on.
So are the participants, can they see and hear us now?
Yes, they can.
Okay.
Are we on yet?
Yeah, we're waiting for the final Facebook, but we got people on now.
Okay. That looks good.
So it says that I just got a text that they've been able to hear us for the last 15 minutes. So just a heads up.
Nice.
What the heck?
Well, we got some early knowledge on them then. See?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
So if anyone else who heard me, if you have a deal, send one over under 250.
There it is. Ooh, there it is. That's smart right there.
All right, guys, we are live here on the webinar, and we are now streaming as well to Facebook. For all those watching at home today, welcome to how to have multiple streams of income in 2021. My name is Marcus Merritt. I'll be your host tonight with this awesome group of speakers. I first want to say thank you all for taking the time out of your day to be able to help educate some people and drop some knowledge on them about everything you've kind of went through this year in 2020 and how you're kind of setting yourself up for success in 2021 with multiple streams of income. I guess we can start out by everybody just kind of introducing themselves and telling them a little bit about themselves. Janine, if you want to go first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Janine Best here with Atlanta Communities. I'm a realtor and a real estate investor. I've been investing in the Atlanta market now since 2006. And I'll go through the various ways I invest here shortly. Thanks for joining.
Awesome. Rich?
Hey, everybody, Rich Monroe. My core competency or specialty is short-term rentals. My wife, Marva, and I kind of made a shift and decided that we were going to focus strictly, for the most part, we have other lines of business, but core focus is short-term rentals here in Atlanta. We've got about 22 listings, and we're about to expand into the Tampa, Florida market next month, and potentially going to get another 20 listings there. So it's, even during this environment, it's been growth mode for us, and we're pretty excited about it. So thanks for joining.
Awesome. Nicole?
Hi, my name is Nicole Hunter, and I'm a realtor and real estate investor. We've been investing in real estate since 2014, and I've been a realtor now a year and a half. I think I got my license in 2019, end of 2019. So I guess I'll be discussing multiple streams of income as time goes on in this seminar today.
Awesome. Thank you. And Keto?
Hey, everybody. My name is Keto Johnson. I'm the broker and CEO of Buy and Sell Incorporated. We are a real estate brokerage headquartered here in Atlanta. I'm a licensed broker in several states in the Southeast. I'm also very active in various real estate investment strategies beyond being a broker. So we'll talk about some of that later.
Awesome. Awesome. I want to thank all you for being here tonight. We do have a couple other speakers I have invited. So if they log on with us, I'll be more than happy to introduce them so they can tell us a little bit more about themselves as well. The main reason for me that I really wanted to talk about multiple streams of income is because I feel like, especially with this past year, I'm sure that everybody here can attest to it, is that if we didn't have different businesses that we were invested in or involved in, that 2020 probably would have looked a lot different for us. Mm-hmm. And as we're kind of heading into this new year in 2021, you know, there is still a lot of unknown, especially with COVID and just businesses in general, that we really want people to be educated on not putting all of your eggs in one basket per se. And I think a lot of people that got hit the hardest this past year in 2020 put a lot of their eggs in one basket. And unfortunately, some people were able to come out of it and some people may not. And, you know, they might still be recovering for years to come. So Janine, I'll kind of hit it to you first. Tell me a little bit more, I guess, about, you know, the multiple streams of income that you have and kind of, you know, what's worked for you this year and what's not.
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, I started investing with my husband as my business partner in real estate on the investment side in 2016. And we were mainly focused on fixing and flipping. So over the course of the next 3 years, we did fixed and flip 21 homes and resold them. And we were really, like you said, putting all our eggs in one basket. And then last year, 2019, early in the year, I started seeing a lot of investors pivot and not really doing the big new construction and a lot of the larger projects that we were taking on at that time, and realized how much I like certain parts of the process of renovating a home, right? I loved picking out the design and the finishes, and I loved selling it on the back end. So for 2020, my real focus, most of my income was coming from commissions being a realtor. So I did get my license in 2017. So I was an investor first, and then I got my license in 2017. And really this year was my biggest year, and I didn't sell any of my houses. So these were all client homes that I was selling. So, and you know, having to modify our strategy last year after realizing that the numbers weren't there, the margins just weren't there for us, what I wanted in a flip. So for us, it was not the right time to continue there. You know, I do like it. I do love it. And we may go there next year, you know, depending on if the numbers get better, if the margins are there. But for the amount of risk that you taking on a property and flipping it, it just, there wasn't enough reward for us anymore. So, so came 2020, and I mainly focused on being a realtor. But on top of that, that's kind of my day-to-day. We have other passive income strategies. So we have 5 other passive income strategies that we do, my husband and I as partners. One is Airbnb. We only have one, so we're not big and bad like Rich, but our Airbnb is amazing, and I keep trying to find another one. It's on Lake Oconee, and this year we'll have 6 figures just in rental income from that one property. So last year we made $85,000 in rental income. This year in 2020, we're making 6 figures. We did a huge renovation during our downtime, which is January to March, right before COVID hit. And COVID hit, and we're like, oh my gosh, we just put, you know, $100,000 into this house, and now we don't know if we're ever going to be able to rent it again. But needless to say, we had an amazing year with that Airbnb, and we're definitely looking more on that, on the lake. So we like the luxury. It's more family oriented versus, you know, being in the city and having to deal with parties and things like that. So, so it's a little bit different strategy for Airbnbs. We also have long-term rentals. So my husband originally started renting his house back in Chicago in let's see, what year was it? It was probably late 90s, like 98, 99. So he's been a landlord that long. We still have that property. It's paid off. So that's great income still coming in. We have great tenants. It is a higher rental property, higher income. So, you know, it's not a lower income property, which I like. So because of everything going on now with the moratoriums and no evictions, you know, I really like having properties that are at a higher rental income level. We've got great renters. We also have 2 other long-term rentals in Atlanta, one in Dunwoody and one in Alpharetta. And that's another area where we're trying to pick up more as well. The other passive income that we do is storage facilities. So I have one, I purchased one in October of 19, 73 units in Elberton, Georgia, and that's going over phenomenally. We quadrupled the amount of rental income that we were getting from when I acquired it just over a year ago. So that one's going great. I manage that remotely all from my cell phone. So that's been great. And the last 2 areas that we do for streams of income are lending. So we've gotten pretty strict on our lending requirements. It's just my husband and I that lend out of our old 401ks from companies. And then any additional income that we might have that we want to not use in the stock market that we want to lend out. We have gotten burned once, so our lending requirements have gotten stricter. And then the other thing that I've kind of added this year is I've been working a lot with vendors and doing referral fees. So that's kind of my sixth income opportunity there. So for either clients that I have that I'm listing their home, or investors that are looking for different vendors for flooring, or contractors, et cetera, I'm also doing referral fees. So those are my 6 different ways I'm making money in real estate in 2020. So it's been a great year given everything. I'm very fortunate that we did take that pivot and turn and modified our strategy. So we weren't just putting all of our eggs in one basket and doing fix and flips. So.
And how do you feel like you've kind of set yourself up for the next year? Like, what's kind of your strategy going into 2021 now, knowing that you have, these 6 streams of income that you've kind of put into place?
Right. So going forward next year, I'm going to continue being a realtor and focusing not only on investors, which is kind of my niche to begin with, because I was an investor to start, but really focusing on getting my name out to just normal, traditional retail clients, my neighbors, my friends, doing a lot more of that locally. So I'm really close to home. And then adding more passive income to our portfolio. So 2021, that's really what we want to do, especially if there are, these forbearances that we're hearing about and foreclosures, when and if that ever gets opened up again. We've got our money ready to lock and load that, to be able to pick up some more Airbnbs, some long-term rentals and storage facilities. So those would be our next areas to add to our portfolio.
I have a question.
Yes,
How are you managing all of this?
I don't sleep much, no. So I have a virtual assistant. She works 20 hours a week with me. So she handles a lot of my, the day-to-day calls that I might get with the storage facility. She processes payments. She handles a lot of my social media. And then a lot of it is really just on systems. She handles, the Airbnb check-ins and communications and things like that. So it's really just systems that I've developed and trained her to be able to accomplish. I am taking calls sometimes on the weekends and, things like that from people that need to pay or whatever for the storage facility. But I try really to focus my time, which is best used as a realtor. And, she can help the clients that need help with the passive income side.
Awesome.
Awesome. Now, is there any of your businesses that you would say coming up that you might take a step back from and less invest in and kind of put more energy into others? Or do you feel like you kind of want to keep all the same energy for all of them?
My husband keeps talking about his retirement plan and how we can ramp that passive income up so he can retire here. He's older than I am, so I'll probably be working a lot longer than he will. But he's also done his time, so he's really pushing me to ramp up getting and acquiring more properties next year for the passive income side. So I think really putting my feelers back out there, putting my investor hat back on, and really focusing on getting a good acquisition on those properties. Because really this year, I didn't add anything to our portfolio. So that was one area where I totally stepped back from this year and just kept it going what we had. And that's one area we do want to ramp up.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Really quick, I'm gonna jump in here. Vanessa had a question for you, Janine. She said, you mentioned starting as an investor and later becoming a realtor.
Yep.
If doing it again, would you do it in that order? Or would you do anything differently, such as getting your real estate license before becoming an investor?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think really depends on what your goals were. So my goals, really were to be able to quit corporate America by doing something in real estate. And I didn't know exactly what that was at the time. So that's where we started fixing and flipping. And the reason why I got my license was I felt like the agents that I was hiring didn't understand the investor side. They didn't know what I was doing to get that house ready. They didn't know how to sell it. That it wasn't a brand new house. It's a renovation. It's still 1950s. You know, it's not going to be perfectly level. Everything's not brand new, you know, things like that. So I had a hard time with the agents I was hiring because I felt like I could do a better job. So that was really why I got my license, was I wanted to be able to take out that piece that I felt was missing from the whole process, that wasn't running as smoothly. I just felt like they didn't understand the whole process and how to sell to achieve a higher appraisal than, you know, possibly the neighbor, because of all the renovations inside. They just didn't get it.
Right.
So I don't know if I would necessarily change the order, because I feel like what I learned as an investor first in doing renovations has helped me tremendously as a realtor. So I honestly don't think I would change it. And maybe if I found the right realtor, I may not have my license right now, and I may have gone in a totally different direction. But I think it helps me even just with regular traditional clients and advising them on how to get the best bang for their buck, what renovations they should do at their home to get the highest sale, even if it's not a full-blown renovation. Hope that answers your question.
I agree. No, that was a great answer. Thank you. We did have an answer from Facebook as well for all of our panelists that says, where are the direct cash buyers in Atlanta? We need them.
We're all here.
I feel like we're all here. So literally everybody here on this panel has bought and flipped real estate in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the biggest thing that I can say, and I'm sure everybody here will agree, is just you want to connect with people and just ask those questions. You know, where do you buy? What's your area? What's your price point? I like asking direct questions, you know, and that kind of gives you a better idea once you find a property, how to market it and who to market it to.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think that cuts out a lot of the riffraff that we see a lot of now, where people are just putting properties under contract and hoping they find somebody. So we'll jump down over here to you, Tito. Tell us a little bit more about what you've been doing in 2020 so far, and kind of your upcoming plans for the new year.
Sure thing. So as I mentioned in my introduction, well, actually, before I say that, I want to say I'm thankful to be on this panel, and I appreciate you, Marcus, for reaching out, and to all the others that I'm sharing with. I'm honored to be in a part of the conversation today. I was sharing with you when I first came on that I just moved, so I have zero furniture, which is why I'm leaning, and I don't have lights and a better shirt and a better background. So, but I wanted to do this for you, Marcus. So I'm a broker, and so that's the first thing. I'm a real estate broker, and I have been for a number of years. Much like Janine, I started as an investor before ever receiving or going after my real estate license, you know, ultimately a brokerage, etc. And so that's the first stream of income for me. My brokerage represents a number of real estate investors. Our focus and niche is working with real estate investors, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I was an investor before I became an agent. So it's just been my natural ebb and flow. As a result, we work with a number of wholesalers around the Atlanta area, a number of fix and flippers, etc. So that part of my business is one of the things that I'm very passionate about, is being able to represent buyers and sellers and to help them achieve their real estate investment goals, whether they are buying as to be landlords, or whether it's a fix and flipper who's got a property that they're ready now to list. The second thing that I do in the real estate space is wholesaling. I represent also a number of wholesalers, and in a moment I'll talk about some coaching that we do, but I train other investors. And so as a result of working with wholesalers, my brokerage arm funnels a number of deals on a monthly basis to hedge funds and private equity funds. So we end up being the liaison between wholesalers to place those deals with end buyers, and oftentimes those properties, we're able to move those properties at some better numbers than the average, 65% to ARV formulas that we often go after as wholesalers. So I'm definitely a cash buyer, and I definitely represent a number of cash buyers, including those equity funds and hedge funds with, in a lot of ways, have some deep pockets to spend. I'm also involved in short-term rentals. So I've been involved in short-term rentals now for about 3 years. To make a long story short, I got involved with short-term rentals as a result of being a fix and flipper. A few years ago, the market had slowed down just a little, certainly not like it is now. And so I had done a renovation project. And when I completed that renovation project, I got the property appraised. It appraised for $342,000 after the renovation. I put it on the market for $339,900. And 2 weeks later, no offers. I dropped the price to $339,000 to $329,000. 2 weeks later, still no offers. Dropped it one more time to $319,000. Got 2 viewings, but still no offers. And so that's when I made the decision to maybe I'm supposed to be doing something different, and that's kind of the way my whole life has been. If I hit a brick wall, then I pause for a moment and ask myself, is this time for me to shift to do something different? And so I did. That was the last time I sought to put a flip on the market. In fact, all the flips that I had under renovation at the time, I converted them, changed my strategy, and put them on Airbnb. And so that's how I got in the short-term rental business about 3 years ago. So that's one of the things that we still actively do. The other thing, another thing that I do is provide education to investors. My niche has often been working with and coaching and training newer investors. Certainly not limited to working with newbies, but that has always been a passion, because I remember what a challenge it was for me when I was first starting 23 years ago. So with that having been said, I have on-demand educational products, online courses, books, ebook, things of that nature that create some passive income from those online sales of those educational products. Beyond the online or on-demand products, I'm also a coach and a mentor. So I have a coaching program that's designed to create long-term buy and hold investors. And prior to us going live, I joked with Janine and asked her if she was interested in a property in the hood, because that's where I eat and sleep and breathe, in the hood. I have a program called Investing in the Hood. And what many people refer to as the BRRRR strategy, I tweaked it a little bit and I call it my PR 5-step system. So it's the same steps that are in the BRRRR, but we specifically take the approach of going into quote unquote gentrifying communities, capitalizing on the gentrification. Now, I know that's a bad word to some people, but capitalizing on the gentrification by at the same time making a difference in the community. So with our PR 5-step system, we leverage resources like Atlanta Housing Authority and some other subsidy programs. We also make a point to employ individuals who live in and grew up in those communities. And because it is the hood, sometimes you got to have folks looking after your property. So on a very regular basis, we have, and I use this term loosely, but individuals who without us would be homeless. that ultimately end up becoming house sitters for us and staying in our properties throughout the renovation process. A number of those house sitters have been with us for several years, and they just moved from one property or one project to the next project. So yes, I'm involved in gentrification, but what I teach individuals is how to take something that could potentially be viewed as not so positive and make it positive by making a positive difference in the community. There's nothing like doing a renovation project and then at the end of that project, looking back to see how many individuals you were able to help put food on their table, individuals from that community.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, leverage, like I said, housing authority type programs. Just a few months ago, I moved in an individual into one of our duplexes that we renovated. And once she moved in, or the day we gave her keys, she wanted to thank me, because ordinarily this would be an individual who would have been completely displaced from the community she grew up in. But because of our system and our process, she thanked me. She said, I grew up in this neighborhood. I'm pregnant, I'm getting ready to have a child, and this is perfect because I'm walking distance from where I grew up and from my grandmother's house. So that type of testimony is something that we are excited about being able to create, investing in the hood and making a positive difference in these neighborhoods. So as opposed to going in, creating equity, grabbing that equity, selling the property and running with the cash, we leave the cash in the community, we refinance, we hold them as long-term rental properties. And that is one of the most important things, I believe, or the most exciting things that I'm able to do. And then with that, I mentioned that in relation to our coaching program around that PR 5-step system. But the last thing I'll say is that system then led into the rental side of our business. So I am a buy and hold investor and always looking to add new units to our portfolio. It's funny because coming into 2020, I thought I was going to just chill for a whole year and not do anything. That really was my goal, to kind of take it easy because I worked so hard the last number of years. And in the midst of the pandemic, in fact, after the pandemic started, I came out of retirement and ended up adding 14 additional units to our personal portfolio.
Wow.
So all of my experience up until this year really has been on the residential side, but we're starting to do and looking at doing some commercial things going forward.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So how do you feel like I guess your business has kind of transitioned this year? What kind of changes have you made to it? As far as, obviously dealing with COVID and other, interactions that have happened, and kind of what's your segue into next year? What are you taking into next year? Anything you're getting rid of? Anything you plan on adding?
Well, thankfully, and what I consider a blessing is that before COVID, I personally experienced a 2007, 2008. And so for me, going through the crash of the market in 2008 was one of the greatest lessons of my life.
So do you feel like there's a lot of, I'm sorry, do you feel like there's a lot of similarities between what happened then and what's happening now?
There are some similarities. There are obviously some major differences, but one of the things that I've seen for other investors that see, when I went through that in 2008, number one, I was very much over leveraged. So at that time, I owned 17 properties and ended up standing with 2. So I lost 15 of those 17.
Wow.
Well over $2 million in real estate that I had to wash my hands of. And what I realized coming out of that, or what I learned from that experience, was 2 things. 1, not to be over leveraged. And 2, not to have, or to diversify my portfolio a bit. So I was very over leveraged, which is why it made sense to just walk away from some deals. But the greatest difference for me now, beyond not being over leveraged, is the fact that I am, that my long-term units, 90% of them are on housing assistance programs. So losing rent was never a concern. You know, we've not missed any rent, never have. And the tenants, you know, the few tenants or the small portion of tenants that we have that have an obligation beyond what the housing authority pays, I mean, it's so small, it's so minimal that it has never made a difference. So that's the biggest thing for us. So to answer your question, fortunately, I learned some things in '08 that prepared me to be in a completely different situation now in 2020.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Um, that's that's crazy that you lost so many properties back then and were able to bounce back. I think a lot of investors, especially ones that are just getting started out, I think they're nervous for stuff like that to happen to them. So, what kind of advice, I guess, would you give to kind of heed that to not happen?
The first thing I would say is be clear on what the type of investing you're doing and what is your exit strategy. But I would caution an individual not to move forward on a deal that doesn't have an alternative exit strategy. And so I mentioned the fact that, I have some on-demand educational products, one of which is a course called Short-Term Rentals, Long-Term Profits. And so, when I created that, 2 years ago, there was no COVID, of course, but one of the things that I made it a point to teach in that course is when you're looking at adding a property to your short-term rental portfolio, make sure that if for some reason you had to remove this property as a short-term rental, if Airbnb didn't exist, if people stopped booking, you want to make sure that you can at least break even by converting it from a short-term rental to a long-term rental. And so thankfully I used that as I took my own advice, right? And also with that having been said, like to answer your question, that's one of the advices I would give. So whether your strategy is short-term rental or whatever your strategy is, make sure you have a clear exit plan and an alternative exit plan that can work if for some reason your plan A doesn't go well for you.
Exactly. I agree with that. And I think a lot of people don't even understand that right there is just multiple streams of income, having that idea going into it. So knowing if it's a flip, but it could potentially be a rental or a short-term rental or, an investment property for something else, just having those ideas up front, like you said, before you even get into the property, really just sets you up for success so that you're not dealing with a headache down the line if for some reason it doesn't turn out the plan A that you needed it to. So
Absolutely.
we did get a question here for you, Tito, that says, do you invest outside of Georgia? And if so, where at?
I don't personally invest outside of Georgia. I'm licensed in Florida, also in Alabama, and I have a partnership in North and South Carolina. So in those states, we represent those private equity and hedge funds. So we funnel deals from wholesalers to those funds. So I'm doing deals in those states, but I don't actively own property in any state right now outside of Georgia.
And would you say over the last, I guess, 8 or 9 months, have you seen business been more prolific here in Georgia than in the other states that you work in?
Sure, but I don't know if I don't know that I can say that's just because Georgia's, so awesome, and though we know it is. I think that I do a lot more deals here in the Atlanta area, and I think that I attribute that to the fact that I have more boots on the ground. I have more wholesaler contacts here. I think that's why, because the equity fund that we are acquiring for They are very, very active in those other states that I mentioned. And so just because we've only done a few deals, they're very active there.
Exactly. I agree.
Now,
Okay.
we do know that Atlanta's hot, right? And that people are moving here from all over the country. Like certainly don't want to minimize that. I was talking to an investor this morning from California, and they can't wait to bring their money here to Atlanta because you can just do so much. And we're hearing more and more with folks in New York, like, let me get to Atlanta. So it's just a great place to be. People often ask, do I ever see myself moving? And my response is, I'll own a house somewhere else. I see myself having vacation homes, but I don't see Atlanta not being my home base.
I've always said that too. Like, I love the West Coast, and I've always
Mm-hmm.
wanted to have a property out there somewhere in California, or Nicole's from Seattle, so I'm trying to get her to get me up there so I can take a look at some properties over there.
Up
but
there, California.
but Atlanta is definitely home. You're right,
Yeah.
and it definitely has grown just so much over the last 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
Just being a hot spot. Even just as a couple of days ago, I read an article that said Sandy Springs, Georgia, was one of the top 5 real estate transactions area in 2020 that actually had like positive sales and not negative.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's interesting, that even, throughout everything that's going on, I think it said it grew 22% versus last year in sales. So
Wow.
people are still buying, obviously.
Most definitely. This from a brokerage perspective, this has been our biggest year. Like,
Wow.
nothing slowed down for us. The only thing we felt a little is for my PR5 properties, the renovation aspect of it. We certainly felt the material prices went up some.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and we also felt not just the prices going up, which the reason they went up was for scarcity. So it was, sometimes we had to go to 6 different Home Depots just to get what we needed, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, it's been amazing.
Well, that's good. That's good. I'm so glad you're still having a good year, and it definitely sounds like you're set up for success for next year, to keep it going along. So.
Yeah.
Rich, obviously I know everybody knows you as the Airbnb guy, but I know that you do so many other things outside of just that one spectrum. So tell us a little bit more about that and kind of what you've been doing this year so far.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me tonight, Marcus. I appreciate it. We've been, focused on Airbnbs, like I said, for the last 3.5 years, but we really got into real estate with tax lien and tax deed investing. And so we used a self-directed IRA basically to do a lot of those investments. And we actually still have properties today that we are liquidating through that process. We purchased deeds here in Georgia, South Carolina, and Maryland. All 3 of those states have very similar laws and similar strategies that make it favorable for the returns as well as the process to take title to the properties. And so that's kind of where we started. We went from that to then doing fix and flips. And so we've done, we probably used to do 7 or 8 fix and flips a year, mostly in Georgia, but also in Chicago and in Maryland as well. And, like I said, like most real estate investors, when you're starting to acquire properties and develop kind of a rental portfolio, we looked at the differences on these properties for a long-term lease, 12-month lease, or a short-term rental. And in most cases, it's 2.5 to 3 times your money. So from the beginning, we built a scalable business that allowed us to grow quickly. And, once we get everything set up and stage the property, a lot of it's automated with automated messaging, virtual assistants. And so it's a very scalable business. Without changing too much in our infrastructure today, we're at 22 listings. We can grow to 60 listings without making too many major changes on the operating side. And so what we've been focused on this year is, kind of doing an evaluation on our existing listings. So I'm actually in one of our Ponce City Market listings that we've had for about 3 years. It's an 8-unit building. We've got a few apartments, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms in the building. The building was built in 1920, and so it's got that character and charm. But what we're doing is kind of shedding these older units, and we're taking down about 6 units, not too far from here actually. It's on Ponce de Leon, right up the street from Ponce City Market, walkable to Atlanta Beltline, Piedmont Park, that are kind of brand new, recently rehabbed in a 30-unit building. We're taking down about 6 units. And so, we're kind of going with that strategy to, improve our existing portfolio. One of the things that we've done that's kind of helped us this year, obviously through COVID and some of the major hits that we've taken with cancellations and delays and things like that, we have 3 different types of strategies. We own some of the properties. We also do master leases with rental arbitrage, and we also manage for other investors for a lot of our properties as well. And so we're going to continue with that strategy going forward. We're actually expanding into Tampa, Florida next month, and we'll be mostly in Tampa, but we'll also be in St. Pete and some of the other cities down there on the coast, and expanding our short-term rental business. And for us, it's really it's a very scalable business, so we can continue to add to it and generate that income on a monthly basis. One of the other things that we do, we have a group that we are engaged with that allows us to, when we're setting up these units, they all need internet, they all need gas, they all need smart home technology, cameras, security systems. And so we've got a partnership where we actually partake in that cash percentage of that residual income when we set that up. So anywhere that we can see a part of the business that we're already focused on that we can make additional revenue, we're constantly kind of adding on those additional streams of income as well. Much like Keto, we're very big with workshops and webinars. I also do coaching. We're going to be rolling out next year actually a coaching program, more of kind of a mastermind format where we do a 12-month engagement and get folks started to learn, basically to do the same thing that we've done as far as automating the business and getting started, setting up, how do you set it up, what's the best way to do your market analysis, what's the best strategy to go after, and we'll kind of spend time focused on getting those folks successful with it. So that's a big part of our business. Obviously with Airbnb, that's one of the reasons why this short-term rental space has been so successful. I'm sure a lot of you saw the recent IPO where they basically, the pre-IPO price was in the $50 and $60 range. Yeah. They opened up on the first day at $165. So from a timing perspective, it's really the beginning, I think, especially as we move into kind of the situation that we've had with people wanting to, social distance and being concerned about the cleanliness. People are opting for Airbnbs instead of hotels more and more now. So that's it's only grown the business. There were 14,000 active listings pre-COVID in the state of Georgia. Right now, there's about 8,000 or 9,000, of which about 6,000 are in the city of Atlanta. So there was probably about 40% drop off of the listings pre-COVID, which again, for the folks like Keto and I that are still in it, I know Nicole has done short-term rentals as well. It just creates a better environment for us as far as opportunity goes. If you look at our occupancy year over year, the last 3 months we've done probably 20% better than we did last year. And, wow. It's just been a constant occupancy with staycations, people doing domestic travel. There's no conventions and events happening, but you still have people that want to change a pace and are kind of traveling and moving into the city. One of the other things that we do that we will be doing going into next year is kind of an assisted living model. And so it's very comparable to short-term rentals, although it's for the elderly and for folks that kind of need that personal home care. And so we're going to be starting a few of those units here in Georgia, and the same thing expanding into Florida. Just kind of another way to have some diversification. We still have a wholesaling business, so we do a lot of short sales. And obviously with, like Janine talked about earlier, with the foreclosures and everything's kind of been in a moratorium. the deferments and forbearances, there's going to be a lot of opportunity there to kind of help people out to get out of those situations. And we also do lending. So we do transactional lending. That's a little bit different. We do maybe a 30, 60-day option for people that are wholesalers that might be trying to close a deal, or investors that are trying to close a deal, and their hard money lender is kind of delaying. We'll come in and refinance them out until they're able to get the longer term financing in. And then the last thing, we also are also getting pretty aggressive with multifamily acquisition. Like Keto mentioned, there's a lot of out of town and even out of the country people that are interested in investing in the state of Georgia. And so, with our short-term rental model, we're kind of looking at mostly below 50 unit transactions that are usually that fit well for this. And so we've got some joint ventures that we're doing there, not only here, but also in Chicago. They have a big inventory of kind of those mom and pop under 50 unit buildings that we want after. So that's kind of a couple of the few things that we've got. The Airbnb being the focus. So, not only am I a super host, I'm also an Airbnb ambassador, and recently an Airbnb community leader, which means I'm going to be more active with, helping people get set up with short-term rentals and Airbnbs.
That's awesome.
And lastly, I'm also, the legislative efforts, being a board member of STRAWAGA, the statewide association for short-term rentals. We're actually going to be involved with the city of Atlanta, defining what the rules are going forward, for that space.
Wow. That's amazing.
So do you feel like, let's start first with this question. Is there any businesses that you've invested in, or any things that you are invested in that you feel like you're going to kind of take a step back from, that haven't been as profitable for you?
Yeah, I think the tax liens, we've kind of recognized the court system and the court process of something that you think might take 8 or 10 months, potentially is taking 12 to 18 months. And when you've got a lot of money tied up, it's a slow burn. The state of Georgia, you have to wait 12 months before you can try to redeem that property. And the quiet title action takes a lot longer than most people realize. And so, we didn't lose money, but we didn't make as much as we would have liked to. So we've kind of moved away. So a lot of the stuff that we've got there, we're currently liquidating, but we're not actively acquiring tax deeds any longer.
I got you. And I know you said going into the next year, you were getting more into assisted living and doing more properties in Florida. Is there anything else that you're kind of wanting to add into your portfolio in 2021 that you're not doing now?
I think we've got a lot of different diversity in the type of properties that we've been working with. So, I think more and more we're going to move towards the multifamily, 20, 30, 40 unit buildings, coming in and partnering with the owner or developer, and basically, 20% of those get converted to short-term rentals, and it kind of improves the cash flow of the overall building. It gives some of the folks that are investing in that space a little bit of a competitive advantage, because as soon as they acquire something, it's very similar in multifamily as it is in single family home. There's folks that focus strictly on buying distressed properties that are in disrepair, that or they're just not been updated since the 80s and 90s. And as people vacate off of those leases, they'll rehab each individual unit. So we'll strategically align with those folks and basically come in and do short-term rentals as they do those rehabs, and then basically increase the overall cash flow on the building as well.
Okay, cool, awesome. Did you I would say, I guess maybe over this last year, do you feel like COVID affected some things that you do differently, as far as what you've invested in previously to kind of what you're doing now? Or do you feel like you kind of kept it business as usual and didn't really let it affect you?
Well, I mean, I think we all affected in many different ways, right? So, from a business perspective, it definitely has been touch and go throughout the year. I mean, at one point in April, the governor was basically pretty much outright banning vacation rentals, which is our core business. We were able to kind of let him a little bit more clarify what that meant. For essential workers and essential use, it was okay. So there's been ups and downs throughout the year that looking back on it, definitely wasn't just smooth sailing. So there were a lot of ebbs and flows with it for sure.
Cool. I got you. Looks like we just had Mike join in with us. What's going on, Mike?
Magic Mike.
Tonight?
Man, I was like looking at my messages and I was like, I'm supposed to be on this call.
Well, thanks for jumping in. No worries. Better late than never, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're gonna hop over here to Nicole here. Nicole, obviously, I know people know you for investing in East Point, doing flips, and now being an agent. But I know there's other businesses that you also invest in as well outside of just real estate. So can you tell us a little bit more about that and kind of what you've been doing in 2020?
I started a business back in 2009 as a tax professional where I was running an income tax business. To this day, we are still running the business. And while I was running that business, I was underwriting mortgages for many, many, many years. So I decided to take my money and run, basically, especially after 2009. 2008, 2009 crash that kind of made me realize that I need to be not one in corporate America, but two, having multiple streams of income. So that's how we started the tax business. Then I moved in to take in a large sum of my money to invest in real estate in 2014 as an investor. Through these trials and tribulations, I have to agree with some of the other people on the panel. Fix and flips don't actually become rewarding until after you've been doing it for quite some time. So we're still in the phrase, I guess I would say, of not wanting to get involved in fix and flips any longer. Maybe one or two a year, maybe, but most definitely we moved into doing new construction. I love it. You can basically budget better with new construction. And I feel like that would be our niche, especially now that my partner, which is my husband, became a general contractor. So, with having the income tax office, working for clients, working for investors, and me as a realtor, I'll be able to list properties, sell properties, help people find properties on multiple levels, whether it's buyers who's buying to live in or buyers that are investors. So I look forward to that, getting more business in the realtor side of it, and eventually move on into a broker. The real estate investment side is going to be pretty predominantly my husband is going to be probably taking over most of that, while I still will continue to design for most of my properties. So having multiple streams of income when it comes down to having all three of those avenues coming in. I would say during COVID, we lost quite a bit of tax clients. And I don't know whether or not we're going to get any of them back, especially now that I'm moving into not taking any clients directly in my office. It's mostly going to be virtual. We can zoom the appointment, but I'm not taking anyone in my office. And as you know, I have a lot of old school clients that like to come in and sit and talk. So that's going to be a little challenging for us this year to see, how that's going to, pan out for us for 2021. But as it's the strongest part of our business really is going to be the building side of it, in project managing and designing. That's going to be the biggest bulk. But I really do want to get back. I really want to move into focusing more attention on being a realtor. So that's kind of where we are.
Nice. So is there any of your business ventures you would say moving forward in 2021 that you're kind of wanting to take a step back from and not invest in as much?
Well, I forgot that I did become a travel agent too at some point doing all this of being self-employed. So
Take a
that,
step back from and
so-
not investing as much.
hold on, I got
Well, I
some feedback. Sorry about that. I would definitely take a step back from doing being a travel agent. It's too time consuming and it's not enough reward in it for me. And I realized that my main focus need to be real estate. And that's even when it comes down to doing income taxes. I'm only going to stick to certain clientele so that I can have my main focus on real estate.
I got you. Now, for somebody who is say they're in real estate now, they've been doing it maybe a year or so, with just a couple of maybe fix and flip projects or wholesale deals, or maybe even they're just an agent that's done a couple of listings. What would you suggest for them if they're wanting to get into having other streams of income now to add to their portfolio?
Starting off, if you're a new real estate investor, I would get a small flip property and convert it immediately into Airbnb. I think that would be the best option for a new investor to get started and to grow their income so that they can move on to other areas. But definitely to get a property that has minor renovations plus getting permanent financing to Airbnb, I think that would be the best option.
Okay. And I guess as well, do you feel like because of COVID, you made any certain changes in your business that you want to continue to keep going forward in 2021?
Oh, definitely. And one of the changes that I made is getting rid of clients coming into the office, which I probably won't go back to that. The other big change that I made is stepping in more into the role of a realtor that I want to continue to grow. I didn't think that I wanted to do that at first, but I do want to continue to do it internationally as well. So those are one of the areas I'm going to try to grow the realtor business is in international, trying to get international listings or buyers, whatever.
I got you.
Focus on. Now that I have a general contractor that can be focused as well. He taking a step back from corporate America in March was a huge sacrifice that we made. And now he's 100 all in, and I can take a 100 all back and do other things. So that will keep multiple streams going at the same time.
Okay, awesome. So besides the tax business and the you said travel agent, and your design and investing company, is there anything else that you're wanting to add to the mix, you feel like, or do you?
Oh yeah, I want to buy me some more properties here in Georgia, and I want 6 for 2021 to do minor rehabs too and convert it to Airbnb. I also want Airbnb out international. So I'm looking in international areas to see where I can invest, our money into and hold for Airbnb. So that's definitely something that I want to look into doing ASAP.
Okay, cool, awesome. Well, really quick, I know we had Glenn and Mike here join in on it. So if you guys want to pop in real quick and just kind of introduce yourselves, and then we'll come back around and give you guys a chance to talk a little bit more about your multiple streams of income. Glenn, if you wanna go first.
Well, I was on before Mike because he forgot to tell me that I was supposed to be here. So it's Mike's fault that I was late. No, actually, I thought I was supposed to be here at 7. I'm sorry, so I completely messed that up. My name is Glenn Glasper, real estate investor. I don't really like to say serial entrepreneur, but I got a few different things going on and entrepreneur, so that's who I am.
Mike, what about you?
Well, I call myself Mike the wholesaler. So I do a lot of wholesaling. Most of what I do is other than wholesaling is coaching of the wholesalers. And then occasionally I'll rent them out. And I've stopped Airbnb only because they owe me like $3,000.
Oh, wow.
But as soon as I get that money back, I'll go back into it. Like, they were just like, the guests wouldn't give us the money. I was like, really? Because everything I hear from other people is like, they would just pass them, or they'll pay if the guests won't pay.
Oh wow. You might need to get Rich involved in that. Maybe he can help you do some type of arbitrage. And get through to the Airbnb people to get a refund on that money. That's crazy.
Mm,
Yeah, hit me up later, Mike. I'll tell you what to do.
okay.
So guys, we've been talking about essentially kind of how we have all kind of set ourselves up this year and kind of survived 2020 basically by having multiple streams of income. Which we all agreed that a lot of us might not be in the position we are in now had we not had different businesses that we were invested in that could kind of float us maybe at times where other businesses weren't as profitable. So Glenn, I know you as you said, is a serial entrepreneur. But tell us a little bit more about the different businesses that you do invest in and kind of how that's kind of helped you out this past year.
I'm an entrepreneur that sometimes eats cereal, so I guess. um, that was funny. Nobody laughed at that joke. I thought
That was funny. I laughed.
Okay.
Hear me, I did.
So, real estate investing, honestly, I've bought more, I've done more actually rental property purchasing. And as far as income, I still, I do some, I guess in the background, some credit restoration, some, what am I trying to say? Unsecured funding. I help people get funds for unsecured funding. And those people I help then get into the business of real estate. So I also do wholesaling, coaching, and consulting for people that are getting into buying, fixing, and flipping, and things like that. So it's those kind of things that are pretty much relative to real estate that have kept me afloat. Um, and more of the coaching and partnering with students and things like that, and doing wholesale deals nationwide, virtual wholesaling, has been, the thing that, and honestly, I started doing the virtual wholesaling before the pandemic, and just wrapping that up and doing more systematizing of that, getting it quite a bit more organized than I had it before, and helping people get the funding, through unsecured funding means, and helping with credit restoration and other things like that. Those are the things that have been, helping things to continuously, chug along, I guess, if you will. Um, and while I haven't, of course, I haven't seen the tremendous year that I expected to have this year, it hasn't been as bad, I guess, as one would expect. So, but having multiple streams of income is certainly a necessity as an entrepreneur. And I would say even before COVID, many of these things I was involved in before COVID, but I tend to agree with Richard, when he said that, when you have like a government entity telling you that you have to shut down a good portion of your income, that can be traumatic, so I always look at multiple ways of generating income, even though, and most of the things that I do tie back into real estate. So, I don't consider myself, I guess that's why I don't know if it's a serial entrepreneur type of thing, because the primary objective is to, get everything funneled back into real estate, and, the education, uh, wholesaling myself, doing some wholesaling and teaching wholesaling, and helping people get prepared to become investors by, getting their credit in order, getting their funding in order, doing some, I guess, financial education as well, as part of that whole business model, showing people how to become what I like to call real life real estate investors. Um, rather than just sticking to the model of wholesaling, because that in and of itself, while it definitely can be lucrative, I still consider it to be a job, because it's transactional. Anything that's transactional, you have to fight and claw almost every time to earn the income that's tied to that. And I like to position myself more of in a residual, passive residual type of situation. Um, and that with, doing some, well, network marketing is a part of the whole thing that I do with the credit restoration and the unsecured funding. So all of that ties into what we do, and it still keeps the motor oiled and the engines running, so to speak.
So is there any businesses, I guess, that you're invested in now that you feel like you're gonna either take a step back from or maybe not be as invested in moving forward in 2021? And anything maybe you're wanting to add?
Well, I would say uh, I had stepped back from the whole fix and flip model, of course, of real estate investing, and getting more to the buy and hold. And I am doing more the flip portion of my fix and flip portion is becoming more, as opposed to just flipping. I'm still controlling those properties in the sense I'm selling on seller finance as opposed to just flipping them out. So I still have control of them. So thereby I can still cash flow from them. But stepping away from anything, I guess, not really. I don't think there's anything that I've been involved in the last year or so that I would step away from. Now, there were several other things that I had already stepped away from before we got to this situation, but um, no, there's nothing that I would say that I'm doing currently. I would step away from. I would certainly be looking at ways of increasing it. During the time, of course, the education portion has been a tremendous portion of what I've been doing as it relates to real estate investing. So that's something I'll be, I guess, leaning forward more towards doing that, uh, and showing people how to build a real estate business that can be lucrative. Um, but anything that I will be looking at adding, probably not. Just getting more efficient, I guess, if you will, with what we currently have going on, the education, the buying and holding and things like that. And, helping people get their finances in order. That will probably be one of the things that we do a bit more increasing, helping people get their finances in order, showing them how to manage their credit, manage debt, things like that, kind of increasing that part, and to show people how that can be significant in, being able to buy real estate and hold it and things like that. So, I will be looking at certainly increasing buying more rentals, around the country. We've been more so doing a lot of that in the Midwest, and just increasing that really is what we're looking at doing.
Okay, cool. Now, what would you say out of all the things that you invest in has been the most profitable for you this year and the least, and why?
The most profitable, wow. I guess, believe it or not, the education has been the most profitable, in terms of, getting students and showing them how to get into the business. And some of them we partner with on doing different things. Um, so that has been, quite a bit of what we've been doing for the most of the year. Uh, and the least profitable, I would say, has been, I guess, the unsecured funding hasn't been as profitable as we'd like it to be. Um, as profitable as we like it to be, only because most of the people that we're taking that route now, we haven't reached out and done a bit of marketing for new clients, um, that would potentially qualify from the beginning. We've actually been more focused on helping clients that don't have as great credit, helping them get to the position of being able to qualify for funding. So because we kind of changed that up a little bit, I guess.
I know that Nicole and I also have partnered with you on the unsecured funding. And that was one of the conversations we had earlier this year, was that because of COVID, so many regulations had changed, making it a little bit more difficult for the normal, I guess, W-2 person to get approved. So
it hasn't had that major of effect. And to be honest, what I found that a lot of the different lenders that we were associated with or are associated with had kind of bent their rules a little bit. They started accepting lower credit scores, believe it or not. They started being a little more flexible about the things that are on people's credit. So, we just didn't, we probably should have taken more advantage of that. But, it's been more of a focus of helping these people with bad, not so great credit, get in the position to be able to obtain funding. And, it's just like I said, we haven't really wrapped up the marketing for the student, for bringing in people for the unsecured funding. We just been focused on the ones that we were building up to that point, I guess, if you will.
Well, let's do it. I'm ready. 2021.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We're definitely turning the corner in 2021. The other thing too, with all that we had going on, the major thing that I've been paying attention to and learning more is about the marketing. Well, and I don't pretend to be any, marketing is not my thing. That's not something I'm going to say I pretend to be, but I've learned so much about that and the way that any of us gather business, especially as it relates to, online and social media and things like that. I learned so much about that there's so many opportunities that I believe that we miss in terms of being able to create streams of income is in the marketing, with social media and the reach that we have with the internet. There's so many opportunities that, you click a few buttons and you got kind of a flood of clients. I know it makes it sound simple, but it's not that simple. But it is, almost once you figure out that piece of it, your clients and customers are there. So, that's what I've been learning more about. So we're definitely going to be ramping that back up in 2021.
Okay, awesome. Mike, so obviously, you call yourself the wholesale king. So we know you wholesale.
Hey, he gave it to me. I've never said that. He gave it to me, so I can.
I feel like I've heard you call yourself that.
Lynn can be the wholesale
listen,
queen.
Listen, Mike is the man of wholesaling. I won't take that away from him.
But obviously, Mike, you have a couple different streams of avenue outside of just wholesaling that have made you money, especially in 2020 this year. So tell us a little bit more about that and kind of what's your plan moving forward in 2021.
Yeah, so I guess the biggest one, well, outside of real estate, I don't know if I do anything outside of real estate other than coaching, but technically that's coaching real estate. One thing I did change up is with my marketing to real estate for wholesale deals, change it up to just make sure that I'm getting it through to them, that I'm just wanting to help these people, as opposed to, hey, I'm interested in buying this property, 123 Main Street. Instead, I'm changing it up and saying, do you need help with your house? One of the ways we can help you is by connecting you with a realtor. And so that's, I would consider that another form of income, because I hand that off to a realtor and then I get a commission from that realtor. The other thing I started doing was I offer funding now myself. So it's not unsecured. It's not like a line of credit. It's hard money. But it's still another source of income. And I can potentially turn any cash buyer or any wannabe cash buyer want to get into real estate into a real cash buyer. The other thing is, obviously I've got rentals, and then I did have Airbnb around in March, but again, that's probably something I'm not communicating to them. And then I think that's it. That's all the sources of income that I have currently.
So how has this year been for you as far as having those multiple streams of income? Do you feel like without having those different businesses to invest in, 2020 would have looked a lot different for you?
Yeah. And the reason you want multiple streams of income is because if something happens, for example, like I think in Ohio and in one other state, New Jersey, they passed a law where it's illegal to wholesale. In order to broker a deal, you have to have a license, a realtor's license. So if you have multiple streams,
I think it's right. I think it's Illinois.
yeah, oh, Illinois, okay. And so, you either have to double close or you have to close on it yourself and rent it out or buy it and fix and flip it, or do some other creative strategy. A partner of mine did exclusively probates at the beginning of the year. And as you know, when the lockdown happened, nobody was able to go to the courthouse. And so he had to find new strategies right then on how to shift and get leads in, because when one dries up, you've got these other forms of income to rely on.
I got you. Now, is there any businesses that you're working on right now that you feel like you're gonna either take a step back from moving forward, or maybe put more time and energy into in 2021?
Maybe the Airbnb would be the only one. But I've sort of had to, like, when I was at Walmart, I would bug people too much. I'd be like, hey, sell me your house. I want to get out of here. And so I sort of had to like learn how to not really bug people. That's why I got the shirt, that we buy houses. So I sort of softly getting people to know that I'm that guy that, can buy your house.
I like that. And would you say that COVID had a big effect on your business this year, or do you feel like it's kind of for you been business as usual?
Oh yeah. So before COVID, I was in person. The call would come in from the letter, or the cold call would go out. That first call would be to get an appointment to the house. And then once we got to the house, we would bring the contract, get it under contract, and then, send it to disposition. And since COVID happened, it's all virtual now. The other reason why I've been able to grow the beard is I don't meet the sellers anymore. But so it's all over the phone. I've got cold callers now virtually, calling multiple lists. We get all the documents virtually. Don't even go to the closings anymore, and don't even get checks. It's all wired right into the bank account. I mean, completely. Even the coaching is all virtual. I'm staying in the house, and I just came off of a cold. I thought I had COVID, and luckily I tested negative. I've never been more excited to taste deodorant in my life. I was like, what if I got it? Oh, it was so gross. So nasty.
How was your test to take the deodorant? So you started to taste buds?
Yeah, well, I had some vitamin D gummies, but I was like, I couldn't really tell. And it was the most like thing I could think of right there, like, oh, that instant, like I'd know, but I don't have it. It was just a cold. So
That's fine. Well, I'm glad you're okay. So do you feel like going forward next year though, a lot of those stuff that you implemented as far as the virtual, you're gonna keep?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep all of it. Well, the only reason I was meeting in person was because the demographic out here is a lot older generation, but with the cold callers, if there is an older person, I can just have them go meet the seller, and of course they can wear a mask and stay 6 feet apart. I'm high risk. My lung collapsed in school. My dad passed away from a heart attack and had diabetes, so I've got all the risk factors. So I don't want to take any chances. But yeah, I'm staying completely virtual. I mean, I can tell you right now, like, this is all I got on.
And Glenn, I don't know if you were here before when Nicole essentially said the same thing for her. a lot of her business she wants to keep virtual in 2021. How about you? Do you plan on keeping a lot of the stuff that you've implemented now because of COVID in place next year?
So COVID, well, actually prior to COVID, I was doing a lot of stuff virtually, and kind of got comfortable, if you will. I was using the word lazy before, but I'll say comfortable. Um, so yes, I'm going to continue to stay virtual, doing most of what I do. I mean, because it's when you look at a lot of what we've been accustomed to do in real estate, you know, I'm accustomed to going out looking at houses and doing all these other things and spending the day in the field and nobody's pretty much typically has been in the office to take care of a lot of the administrative stuff. So I'm able to get a lot of that stuff done. I finally built my website this year. I hadn't had a website, I thought, for my business for quite some time. So I built my website this year because I had the time to do it. And a lot of other things I'm finding that administratively I'm getting done as a result of being able to do things virtually. So I'm definitely going to stick to the virtual portion of what I do.
Keto, I know you just joined back in with us, but we were just talking about essentially some of the
Hey,
stuff that we've implemented as far as virtually for 2020, kind of taking that into 2021 as well with us. Is there anything that you've implemented that you've kind of done now virtually instead of in person that you plan on taking forward?
Not so much. I mean, if the one thing that immediately comes to mind, that's a small thing, but I've always been very hands-on, even with, with my contractors in the renovation process, preparing properties to rent out. And when COVID first came along, we had to think of ways to do more FaceTimes and things of that nature, so that I didn't have to be present as much. And I guess the reality is, even though that was working well, because I like being hands-on, I've kind of gone back to my old habits of being there more. But going forward, that's the whole goal is to, at least for me personally, to transition and to begin to focus on other things. Like I remember 2 years ago, and shout out to Stacy Rossetti, but I remember 2 years ago I ran into Stacy in a meeting, and she was telling me, I'm not going to flip houses anymore. And I asked her why, because we knew her as the flipping queen, right?
right.
And I said, why? She said, because it's not fun anymore. And one of the things that I had to really ask or consider, just really over the last few months, while everything that I do is blessed and tremendously prosperous and things of that nature, I'm having to ask myself, okay, going into 2021, what is going to bring the most fulfillment, right? So I mentioned a number of things that we do that create income streams for us. But for me personally, going into 2021, I want to focus more on commercial. I know residential like the back of my hand. I can do it with my eyes closed, just about any aspect of it. But I want to really get my feet wet and do more commercial type projects going forward. So it's not a direct answer to your question, because that's not just because of COVID, but I do think it's important for us to, regardless of what we're doing, right, and how well it's working, to ask ourselves, are we doing what we enjoy, right? And some of the things that I've done for years are still working well, but they aren't quite as fun anymore.
Right.
And so I'm making some shifts in that regard in 2021.
And I know that essentially all of you have touched on essentially not only just like coaching programs that you all have, but I know a lot of you do networking events that were typically before March held in person. How do you guys feel about that moving forward? Is that something that you want to get back to, or do you feel like you have kind of shifted to the virtual space with that as well?
That wasn't fun anymore either. That wasn't fun anymore either. Those months rolled around fast. Like,
They do.
let's finish the meeting. Then I got to do another one, right?
Was it fun?
I plan to start mine back up next year. But he's right though. I agree with Keto. Those weren't as fun as we like them to be. Because that that month did roll around. And he's like, man, I gotta start setting this stuff up all again already. But yeah, I mean, I believe because of the hopefully the vaccine and all this stuff that we're gonna have happening, people won't be as reluctant to come out. So I plan on starting mine back in January. Well, January is going to be virtual. We're probably not going to go back to the physical outing until maybe February or March. But I do plan on starting it back up again.
Marcus.
Yeah, we're gonna.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, we're gonna do the same thing. I mean, we're probably January, February, see how things are going.
Yeah.
And then have some meetings back in person again, just to kind of feel it out. But we're definitely planning on doing virtual until that changes. And as most of you know, with Stacy Rossetti kind of going national now, I think she plans on being virtual throughout going forward. And so, for some of us that are still leading some of those groups, those will be virtual. But we do other meetings that we definitely plan on going back in person as well at some point in February, March.
What were you saying, Keto? I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, at the very beginning I think before we actually went live on Facebook, we were talking about social media, and you and I both mentioned the new app Clubhouse. And I fought getting on it because the guy who was trying to get me on, I was like, the last thing I need is another app that's gonna, rob me of my time. But in the last 2 weeks that I, have been on it, I do believe it's a real game changer. And I do believe that I see myself where I was not really looking forward to hosting any meetings anymore. I can see myself using a platform like that. And again, being consistent, because, people all the time reaching out saying, when are you going to start back? I guess in that regard, I did kind of take a break this year, but that app, for those who aren't on it or haven't heard about it, you got to be an iPhone user. Of course, I can't imagine why in 2021 somebody doesn't have an iPhone, but that's.
I don't know. I feel like I didn't text Glenn and Mike before, and they definitely can't be
iPhone is good. Thank you.
Wait. I have like 3 iPhones, so.
You do? Okay. Sorry.
Android.
I fought it for a long time. But yeah, I crossed over to iPhone maybe a couple years ago. iPhone, iPad, all these other things.
Yeah, I love Clubhouse. And actually, Keto, I think it was a couple of days ago, you were in a group and you were moderating about wealth building. And I've not even I've probably sat in on probably 10 groups on there. And I just like to listen, Yeah. I just like to listen to the different people speak. And, I won't even stay on long, sometimes maybe just 15 or 20 minutes. But sometimes even just that short amount of time, they drop so much knowledge. And I really feel like, for me, I love networking. So I'm feeling like I'm getting back to that pre-COVID, out and about, seeing other people who are, wanting to network and learn and grow along with each other. So I really like that.
Yeah.
Those of us that don't know anything about it, what's so different about it, Keto, that's got you excited?
I need an invitation. I still haven't gotten an invitation yet.
Apparently you have to be invited. You can't just go join. So it's a special club.
I would like to know that too.
You just open up a room and give it a topic, and then people jump in, and everybody can talk to each other. It's like the Wholesalers R Us, every Monday they jump on a call. It's like that, except you could see everybody's room, and you can scroll through everything. I jumped on one with the Max Maxwell on there talking.
I saw that. Yeah, I did see you jump on the mic. Yeah. And I mean, essentially, we could create our own room if we wanted tonight and say multiple streams of income. This is the room. And people.
But that's only on Apple.
Huh?
I
That's
think
only on
it's.
I
think
know,
that's
I'm
only for a
sorry.
while. I think it's,
So it doesn't apply to Android users. So you have to be very clear on your and concise on who can use that.
It doesn't. No Android users. I'm sorry.
Okay.
But if you want to get another line, and then you have an Apple line too. So
hey,
then
wait, just get an iPhone from Glenn. He's got like 2 extra.
Right.
I'm good.
So I use them for different reasons. So actually, my webcam is an iPhone,
Wow.
and I have an Android and an iPhone too. So I'm still on the fence a little bit.
Don't change. Don't do it.
So for those who are have an Apple product, you can go and download the Clubhouse app. And if you don't have an invitation, you can download the app and set up a profile on your phone. And then if there's anybody who is in your contacts on your phone who is already a Clubhouse member, then they'll be notified. It will say, Rich Monroe is on the waiting list. Do you want to let him in?
yes.
Oh wow!
And so that's one way you can.
That's the easiest way to do it. Yeah, because you only are allowed, I think, 1 or 2 invites right when you sign up.
Yep.
Immediately, I think I used mine up, and people started offering me like $50 for an invite, and I was like, "Damn, I used."
That's serious? Wow!
They really are, right? You know? I mean, it's really like people are really like begging to be on there. I mean, the other day there was a group which had P Diddy and Jay-Z in it talking, and so you're conversating with celebrities who are doing millions and billions of dollars of entrepreneurship, dropping gems. So people feel like it's very exclusive, I guess. So
Yeah, but it's also one Facebook update away from being canceled, because all Facebook has to do is just add rooms everywhere with audio only, and it'll do the same thing.
I mean, at some point, all social media kind of catches up with one another.
Yeah.
TikTok was there, and now I think Instagram has like Reels, which is like TikTok. So, they all kind of catch up with one another at some point. So,
Yeah, but it is like, and I don't know if it's just because it's so new or what, but everybody that is so freely given with information. And I met everything from, wholesalers in Charlotte who are sending deals now that we're sending to the fund, to top execs that are managing multi-million, in some cases, billion-dollar funds.
yeah.
And everybody's just on giving, at least right now, giving free game, and you can raise your hand and go on the stage and ask questions, and make pitches, and like it's any topic of conversation or anything that you're interested in, you can search it, and there's literally a conversation going on literally around the clock. Like I was on a conversation about how to maximize your credit impact, and credit repair and credit hacks, right? And this guy gave one gem about how to hack and maximize your rewards cards benefits. And so I literally went to sleep at like 11:30 and woke up the next morning at 6 a.m. and that room was still going. And there were, of course, new people in the room, but they were still talking and collaborating. So I've heard of rooms lasting 72 hours before, but
Wow.
it can be addictive. So you got to be careful, but at the same time, very, very valuable information if you're in the right rooms.
Oh, nice.
Mhm.
That's awesome. I did not know that.
Me either.
Yeah.
Well, just to kind of wrap everything up tonight, guys. First off, I want to say thank you all for being on the call tonight. Just talking about and letting people know that having multiple streams of income is very important, especially heading into this next year where there still is a bit of unknown. Just to know that you have different assets to be able to back you up when maybe one is faltering is really important. And I think a lot of people kind of starting out at the beginning of this pandemic back in March, people that didn't have that are really feeling the effects of it now. And so I really wanted to get that information out to them and let them know, now is the time, if you haven't already, to start kind of putting these things into play. And like a lot of us here, we all started out kind of in the real estate field, but have been able to branch off into multiple other different streams of income. Some of them real estate related and some not. And so I just want to make sure that everybody really understands that just because you start with one thing doesn't mean it's the end all be all. And kind of like we said in the beginning, you don't have to put all of your eggs into one basket. So again, I want to thank Mike Watkins, Glenn Glasper, Rich Monroe, Keto Johnson, and Nicole Hunter. Janine Beth was on here earlier with us as well, so I want to thank her too. Just for giving your time and knowledge to everybody. I dropped all of your contact info in the chat for them to be able to follow you on your social medias if they want to follow up with you guys and have any further discussions. Maybe we can look back again in 3 or 4 months and see what's 2021 doing, and maybe we can have another conversation about this. Okay.
Okay, that sounds good.
Man,
We'll see how all the money coming in the market in this month, next month pans out for us.
Exactly. All right, guys. Thank y'all again. And everybody, y'all for watching at home. And y'all have a great night, okay?
All right.
Marcus, take care, buddy.